to North², a production of Peak FM. I'm your host, Korey Luna. And today I speak with Patrick O'Brien, aka POB. You can find him on Bandcamp under POBNRG. We talk about him getting into noise engineering, getting into Modular, and playing trumpet, Modular on the Mall, and getting into the music he produces. Patrick, thank you so much for coming out and being on Peak FM for North² today. I really appreciate it. I text Shonda and Richard, letting them know that you're going to be on our interview process for Peak FM.
Nice. Well, I appreciate the invite. It's really great to see you and to have this chance to finally talk with you. And I feel like I see you whenever I visit LA, but don't really get a chance to say hello as much as we should.
That's right. How was Brooklyn Friends for you?
It was really a lot of fun. I went to the one last year as well, and moving it to the new venue and having everything on one floor, and it just in this massive space where people rent out to do, just I don't know, it looks like movie. I mean, there was like an airplane seating area there, and there was like a huge bookshelf and a lot of like green screens and props. So it was cool to be in this like really LA feel, and then just have all of the electronic instruments that you could just see all in one place. It was really exciting, and I was able to walk around quite a bit in between being at the booth. But just seeing everybody together at once is like, it seems like it's harder these days to get people together like that. So that's really the part that I enjoy the most.
Yeah, it was really something to see. I love the new space as well. I loved having everything just on one floor instead of two floors, made it a lot easier to find everybody. And it's now becoming almost like it's almost like a family reunion. Now, whenever I go out to an event like that, when I go to like a trade show sort of space like that, I just expect to see particular people, yourself included. And it's always just kind of running around going, half of the time it's like, it's great to see you again, trying to catch up with certain people, and then getting to see all the other new vendors and seeing what other people have been coming up with. That's like one of the most unique and wonderful experiences that I take from Brooklyn Friends.
Yeah, seeing people get a chance to get behind a booth for the first time and put out their product was really exciting. Like here, I'm on the East Coast, and one of my friends, Ali the architect, had Ali Modular come out with Asus Trifecta. So to see him come from the East Coast and come out to the West Coast and like show off this module that he's been testing and developing, we kind of been seeing a little inside process of that, going from having no assets or no modules whatsoever, and then coming out with this physical product for him. It was just really a cool story. And then to see him at Brooklyn Friends, it's like, yeah, this is great to see people like him just getting out there and succeeding with what he's doing. And it's just for us, like we opened a Discord. I work for noise engineering. So, we opened a Discord a few months back. And so we were seeing some people from the Discord showing up at Brooklyn Friends. And so it was good seeing some faces with avatars and usernames. So that's, in addition to the manufacturers, also seeing people who just love our products and just, and I lived in LA for many years. And so I got to know a lot of people in the city, and they always come together, and just good to hang out again.
Now, speaking of you having spent time in LA, I was curious with my first question is, how did you get into Modular?
Wow. It's quite an interesting story. My wife and I, we lived in Washington, D.C. for about 4 years. We left here in around 2012, and we both decided to go to LA at the same time. And I had at the time I was working in the news business, so I was called a digital director. So I was kind of in charge of all the breaking news for social media platforms and digital, all that. That's where I spent most of my 21 years in the news business, was doing that. So.
Wow.
So we were out there together, but I was like, man, I need some therapy. Like, news is rough, but I need to kind of get something. Like we're in LA, like we moved into the Hollywood area, and you could hear people playing guitars in the elevators. And it's like the whole vibe was just so positive. And it's like this, it's everywhere in the air. So I explored a little bit, and I actually picked up a Moog Subfatty, which was new at the time. And I got that really nice analog sound. And I started going on YouTube, and I stumbled across Celldweller, which I've always been a fan of Celldweller for many, many years. And I had seen that he had this huge Eurorack studio and had all this gear. I'm like, what is this? I've never really seen that much about it. And like, this is insane. And then he had done a demo of, it was at the Harvestman at the time, but the Hertz Donut 2, Mark II, and just ripped like universes. And I'm just sitting there looking at the screen going, what are these little modules? This is incredible. So I just got hooked on what he was presenting, and just having all those really nice, well, it was a dual oscillator. So you can imagine just like the phasing and just this distortion, and it was so sick. And so I started exploring a little bit and found out that, Analog Haven's in Los Angeles, and their studio, there was the Big City and Studio City,
Studio City.
Yeah, and then there was this was even before Perfect Circuit in Burbank, and Pomona had the Noise Bug. So there were a few stores out in the area. So I went to Big City Music in Studio City, and just walked in there without any idea what was going on. And this was also happening at the time, which is the really important fact I don't want to forget, that my wife, we were there for 2 years already in Los Angeles, and my wife wanted to get back into local TV news, and she was working with an agent who had placed her in Tampa. So she was doing some work for news in Los Angeles. She was working for an international news agency, but she was the LA correspondent. So she did do a lot of traveling, but she wasn't really technically on like broadcast in LA. But she had a history of being a television anchor. That's how we kind of got to know each other. And so she had a chance to get back into television, and said, I want to go to Tampa for 2 years. I'm like, what? I just got to LA. I had just kind of renewed my contract with news. We were both in the news, so we kind of understood there are going to be moments when you're going to have like long distance something. And, or we've had an anniversary that was interrupted by a breaking news story. I mean, we both understand that. We get that. So she was going to go away for 2 years, and we were going to do this long distance thing for a while. And then, so I dropped her off at the airport, and I went straight to Big City Music and said, I got to figure this out, because my wife just left to go across the country, and I don't want to be sitting in a bar drinking my sorrows away. So why don't we just spend that time figuring out what this Eurorack thing is that Celldweller was ripping shreds with. And so I sat there for half an hour at Big City Music, and I had to make an appointment because you had to kind of go in the back where the inventory was. They didn't have they didn't have a showroom.
Yeah. So
I went back there, and I just looked at a 3-row case for 30 minutes, wondering how the hell am I going to make a sound out of this? And Steffi, which I got to know over the years, she was working there. And then there was a guy named Morgan who was there, who actually came up and then was like helping me. But at the moment, I wanted to figure it out. Like, I was told that you can plug anything into anything. You're not going to blow it up. So I did finally get like a sound out of it. And then from there, I bought like 6 modules and started the journey. And it was so fun. My wife and I, we ended up being long distance for 7 years in this time. So she could swear that she was actually in the room when I was doing Modular, but there was that was like a same day thing. Cause she's like, I still feel like you and I, like you had Eurorack and I was in the same room. It's like, no, you two had never crossed paths. So when I moved back to DC, then we finally like put everything together. But,
wow.
But yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then my employer was in kind of the Santa Monica area, West LA, which was like a couple miles from Analog Haven. So I'm like, screw this traffic, because I lived it would take an hour and a half, your typical commute.
Yeah.
So I would just say, I'm dodging over to Analog Haven. I'm talking to Kitty Spit over there, and we're just going to geek out on synths. And then I'm probably going to walk out with some IntelliGel or some Make Noise. So I would spend 2 hours there, and then traffic would die down. And then I would, get home at a reasonable time, and I'd have a new module. So that happened a lot. And so there was a moment there where I'd gotten a lot of gear just because I was really excited about getting into it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's quite a journey. I didn't realize that. One, I didn't realize you had come from journalism, and you and your wife had to do long distance for such a long time.
Yeah, she had gone to Tampa for 2 years, and then she picked up a job in Washington, D.C. 2 years after that for like a 3-year contract. So like, okay, 5 years apart. And then she renewed again at 7 years. And then, pandemic happened. We didn't see each other for almost a year because of the travel situation. And we said, this is ridiculous. And so I ended my contract, or my contract ended in television in Los Angeles, and I just moved to LA. Or I moved back to DC to be with her. And that's kind of why I'm out in DC at the moment. So yeah, so that was a long time, and we said we weren't going to do that ever again.
Yeah, that's rough. I understand that you are a classically trained trumpet player, and I was curious about if you ever bring brass or any of that training into your modular performances.
I would say it does, but it does in a way that, because I think about this often, because I played trumpet and I was classically trained in piano for many years, about the same amount of time. But there was something about the trumpet that playing that brassy sound, brass horns, you always seem to have like the melodies, and whether you're playing in high schools or marching bands or whatever, it's like I always carried the melody. So I was getting very familiar with melodic lines and all styles of music. And so I think that from learning melodies like that, that kind of made me more of a melodic modular synth player. Plus having some of the background of being classically trained, I kind of associated music a little more into that style, or more into arithmetic and mathematics and theory versus just kind of winging it, which is okay too. Everybody's going to get to their destination however the road takes them. But for me, I think that the brass influence came into the melodic style that I play. Plus, I, unlike a lot of people, I wasn't really around a lot of music that people tend to talk about. Like I didn't know who Autechre was. I really didn't know who Kraftwerk was. I was more into the pop music. I grew up in Missouri on a farm, and we listened to a lot of top 40 music, my sister and I would. And so, I grew up listening to bands like Chicago. Like Chicago was like the greatest band. They had a horn section. I played horns. And so listening to Chicago and their beautiful like ballads and melodies, I think also played a part in that, and me being a trumpet player on top of that. So, yeah, but I have to say that at the very end of last year, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm looking into picking the brass back up again, and maybe actually playing it with modular. So that's something I've been working on. In fact, I had I picked up this like flugelhorn in December, and I said, I'm going to pick this up. I've always wanted one, and I'm going to practice. I've been practicing every day and getting my technique back from the 12 years of playing, when I was younger. And I just want to do I tinkered with it a few times over the years, but my lips were like, I'm going to play just enough to where my lips don't die. So I'm building up my aperture. I'm building up the endurance, and hopefully, I haven't really said this to anybody, but hopefully later in this year, I'm going to come out with something that will involve the two worlds. And I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Dude, that sounds so cool. So speaking of combining these wonderful elements, tell me about working with noise engineering. How did you end up working with them?
Sure. It kind of all started because I heard about NAMM and didn't really know what that was about. And so I knew a lot of being in LA. I knew a lot of people talked about going to NAMM in January. And so ironically, I got my first NAMM passes through my hairstylist, because my hairstylist is like, you want to go to NAMM? Someone gave me tickets to go, and I don't even know what it is, but if you want to go, I'm like, thank you. So I went there from this German company. I actually got to know the guy. His name's Wolfgang. And so we got to know each other. I'm like, hey, we got the same hairdresser. NAMM talking about hairdressing is like strange. But anyway, it got me into NAMM, and then I got to see everyone's booths. And I remember seeing Stephen McCall, from Noise Engineering. He was there. This was like 2015, I think. And he was just doing it all by himself. And he had these great modules. They were all prototypes with the purple panels. And when you stop by his area, he would give you like a 10-minute demo on all these things that he's working on, because he just wants to get your feedback. And I was just so fascinated by how the way he could tell the story about the synthesis and the process, and how he builds his own distinct sounds into it, and then just like the utility modules. It was all just really, there's no way I could remember the 10 things that he showed me, but the enthusiasm was so high. I'm like, but man, he looks so busy. So after that, I started seeing him at when we go to like Modular or Analog Haven would sometimes have events where they would have Sean Cleary would bring in some module manufacturers, 3 or 4 of them, and then bring in 3 or 4 people to do performances and kind of open up the warehouse. So Steven would show up as a manufacturer, and then Kitty Spit would invite me to perform. So I got to know Steven through those events. And then one day I was just like, hey man, I'd love to help you at NAMM. Like, I'd love to just learn what you're doing and give you some relief, because it was just him at the time. And then him and Chris started the company just like the year after that. So that's kind of how I eased my way in, was just trying to like help them, because I believed in their product. I love their product, the Bacillus Heteritas EOG. I just love that module. And you can see the company was expanding into other products. And so I started with that. And then they liked what I was doing on Instagram at the time, because Instagram had just opened up 15 seconds of video, because it was all photos and suddenly you can do video. And I remember just doing like videos of Modular patches in that, and they really liked it. Like, hey, you do great lighting, you do great sound, maybe you could help us with demos. And I took on that role. So I did for 4 or 5 years before I was hired on with them. I did their demos, and just like on a whim, and it was really exciting to have that as a contract job and just kind of get into their ecosystem. So, and then from there, the company just kept growing, and eventually, right around the time that I left to go to DC was when they were ready to hire somebody to do like social media marketing, and of course do the demos, but to go to conventions and like be like an integral part of the process, and doing the testing and some of the art and all of that. So I left DC, and then I just started working, or I left LA to come to DC, and then I was hired on for them out in LA. So that was 2021, and so for 5 years now I've been working remotely for them. So I'm kind of like, I'm an East Coaster on West Coast time, and but it's been great keeping up with them. And then they fly me in every year around January for things like Buchla and Friends, and we have like a summit where we come together and talk strategy while we're all together. And so they've been really, really great with making sure I stay connected to Los Angeles, because it was such a great city for me, and how that's where I found my roots in modular synthesis. And the rest of the company is in Los Angeles. I'm the only one that's remote at this time. So it's good to stay connected to all things Los Angeles, in my opinion.
And in connection with that, are you involved in any of the development of new modules for noise engineering?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we all are playing at our strengths. There's 4 of us right now, so we all are have a lot in development and or in testing, we come together and we think of ideas, or how do we do a version 2 of something, or just come to think of just something completely out of the our normal line of vision, and see if we can put that into our style. And so a lot of it is brainstorming and figuring out what we want to put on a module. So I'm involved in some of that. And then, of course, the process through the whole development is something like we'll do testing in that, because I'll usually get a prototype more toward the end of the stages, like when it's almost ready to go, because there's just so much that they're doing locally. So, but usually by the time the module is sent to me, it's ready to go. Let's get the video going. So if I find a bug while I'm trying to do a video demo, sometimes that we were like, oh, we got to figure something out. But so far it's been great. Like, we haven't had any issues with that. It's constant firmware development until we get closer to the release, and then we put out the factory version. But yeah, so I'm involved in some of the development and testing, and but just like I did before, I would do all the manual videos, and I'd be like the hype man for all the new things that are coming out, and just like get out into the conventions and talk to people and do those demos. It's really the exciting part of the job.
That's always good seeing you at the booths.
Yeah, it's really sometimes getting in the booth. It's like, I want to show you this awesome new the module we just put out last week, but it's like, but how are you? Like, how's your kids? Like, how's the work going? Or just like, have you put out some new stuff lately? There's always a mix of, I want to show you this stuff, but I also want to catch up with life.
Yeah, I definitely get both of that, because I ran into Danny Kim, who's from San Jose out here. He put out that book, Open Source, Volume 2, I think. And so like right away, it's like, we don't, even though we don't live that far away from each other, technically, we never see each other. And we ran into, and so seeing him at Bookland Friends, it was like, dude, how are you doing? What's going on? But at the same time, like, he's like, dude, check this out. And he's like, you can scan a QR code that's hidden in this image at the booth, and it pulls up a map on Google Maps of all of his favorite like mixology places and restaurants that he's been to within Los Angeles. So I didn't get a chance to go to any of them, but I did save it. So it's in my phone. I can just pull it up, and I checked out some of them, and they look so good. Like, he's got such an amazing palette for high-end cocktails and wonderful dinners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see I got the Binary Society shirt, which is his. He actually a few years ago he flew me out to San Francisco, and we did a show there, and he brought out the lasers, and it was me and Pef and John O'Wells, and just like, I remember seeing Frank Martin there, and Arbini was there. And it's just like really cool to hang out with people. But there was this awesome like almost the size of a barn, but it was just all brick, like a lot almost, and just had these amazing speakers, and just did this great light show and laser show, and the whole performance was just so cool. So he had made like shirts. This one was I think this was from an event that it in San Francisco with Robot Speak, like 10 years ago. They used to have all the synthesizer like annual events, and I think they got up to like 15 years, and then Steve was kind of like, all right, I think I'm good at doing these, but they were such a big deal. And I remember playing up there. And so and then Danny had done the Binary Society part of that synth party, where like we kind of like the record store next door to Robot Speak was like pushed aside, so we could do like synth shows right next to the store and just have everybody hang out there. Man, I love San Francisco.
Yeah, that shop is called Vinyl Dreams.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. That's tight. Yeah, I remember Steve used to do I got into it kind of late, around 2017, but he was doing a thing called Church of the Super Surge.
I remember him doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got to go to a couple of those shows, and then he hasn't done one in years now, I think. But those were fun.
Yeah.
Like, you just be like in the shop and around, there'd be someone just like in the center of the shop, and the shop is already tiny, and just having like 5 people in there is a crowd.
Yeah, it's like it's the half store, you know, where you kind of gotta go downstairs, and it's so cool.
It's very San Francisco.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of communities, I was curious about who did you work with to put together Modular on the Mall in DC?
So that kind of was something I created on my own, actually. But being in Los Angeles, I was around when Rodent started Modular on the Spot in 2015. And I remember going to the very first one that he had put together, and I think it was Marsh Park in Frogtown, and just seeing just this amazing group of people that are just hanging out. And someone brought a Surge and then Modular, and just had this like bringing blankets, and so I was really captivated by that. So I'm like, dude, I'll play the next one. So we did another one, which was across the street from the place called the Spoke Bicycle Cafe, and which we ended up playing there, but then we played at the parking lot across the street because we didn't, we just needed a venue because the park didn't like Mott's having a gas generator. So we had to move out of that park. But Rodent coordinated all those. But then when he ended up going to Asheville to work with Make Noise, a group of us stayed around the Mott's in LA, and we kind of picked up where the legacy that he had left. And so we carried it for a while. And then when I moved to DC in 2021, I was always envisioning something at that space, because I would come here and visit my wife when we were long distance. And I remember walking the National Mall, and I would just see this World War I memorial nestled in the trees. And I'm like, this is so cool. And it's like, there's like a marble stage. It's about 4 feet high off the ground. And it's a memorial, but it's also a bandstand, because John Philip Sousa inaugurated it back in 1930 and had a 45-piece band there. But it's also a memorial for 26,000, vets. And I'm like, okay, so it's okay not to be quiet here. They want you to play and perform. So I said, this would be an amazing place just to bring out, because with Mott's, you're bringing everything. You're bringing the power, the speakers, the mixers, the wires. And so so I found out that was one of the places that the National Park Service would allow anybody to basically have to have it permitted. It's I'd say 99% of the people there get permits for weddings, and we're the only non-wedding event for the most part. So when you go back and look at the feeds of the War Memorial, it's just like wedding, 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 wedding. Weird synthesizers with cables and LEDs. Weird people. What is happening? Wedding, 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 wedding. We actually, one of them, like 2 or 3 years into it, this wedding couple didn't know that they had to have a permit to be under the dome. And so they showed up, and they had the limo and the whole wedding party. And it's like, sorry, this is our permit. We're going to do our show here. So they were on the lawn. They did the wedding while we were doing our show. So he was over there, do you take this? And we're just like, ring on the side. It was like the coolest. Like, well, we're here. The family's here. We got a party. Like, chop, chop, let's go. And so, yeah, they had a wedding on the lawn while we had our show, because I wasn't going to tear it down. Like, it takes a lot of effort to set up, and we did the right thing. So, yeah, I worked through the Parks Department, got a permit, and ended up being a really beautiful space, and people loved it. And we haven't done it in a while just because of just things that have been happening on the National Mall that, to me, I feel like isn't in the spirit of what the shows were about when we started it. So, but yeah, they're great shows, and we tried to make extra efforts. Thanks to John O. Wells, he was like, "You got to be filming this stuff," because he had flown out for the first show, and he's like, "You got to be filming this," because we were just going to make it totally like Mott's, almost like a Mott's style, where it's just like, just play, not going to document it. But then my wife ended up getting like what do you call the cameras with the stabilizer on it. And so then we started, because it's in a dome, we were doing these going around the artist, because we would put all the artists in the middle of the memorial. And so people could sit behind the artist and see the process. They can sit in front and see the emotion. So like having the artist in the center of the dome was like awesome. Plus the dome itself was acting as a subwoofer in some ways. Like thong, you get this really interesting, when you're in the center, that, you know, once you walk off the memorial, it just like the sound disappears. And so, but just having her like do this camera shot around just added so much more to it. And so we really focused on the videos and just like showcasing people in that way, and shooting them in a way that that we hadn't seen before, and kind of create FOMO for people who would love to come out. And like, we've had a couple people who would come out in the summer and say, hey, I'm taking my family out to see the, you know, Smithsonian's, but hey, while I'm in town, do you have a show? Because I love to play. And we did have that happen a couple times, and we made it work. Pending like rainy days, like that was always the hard part that I was not prepared for, because in Los Angeles, there was rarely a rain out, but here it was like, we got lucky. The first 3 years of shows, we didn't have any rain outs. And then the last year we had like 3, and it was just such a bummer. But
so your wife had a gimbal.
Gimbal, yes. That's what it was, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just a nice handheld, and just to smooth out the shots. That's
so cool, man. Like the way you described it, I hope I can attend one of these someday. There's one, I've never been to DC, and I've never been to a Modular on the spot. I just have never lived in an area where it's happening, so I've just never attended one.
Mm-hmm. And the one of the coolest things about it is because we're on the memorial, but you might see like the hockey field, like you might see soccer being played in the distance, and then you see there's like layers of people. So like, because we're very close to the reflecting pool too, so we get a lot of touristy traffic. And then you see the soccer players, and then you see another row of casual, and then all of a sudden a Segway tour just like rips around the memorial. So while someone's just doing this like ambient sound, you just got this like circling, and then they may stop, and then they'd like sit over the edge for like 10 minutes and be like, what is this? I'm confused. And then they go. And it's like, that's the point. Just come in, get a little taste of what we have. I'm sure you didn't come out here probably to see a concert, but ta-da, like hopefully you walk away with a cool experience. And yeah, it was really a neat thing, I would think, for other people to stumble on.
Absolutely, man. That must be something to just kind of walk in on. I mean, living in San Francisco, you see all kinds of weird things happening, and there's events happening constantly. You're just walking around downtown, and all of a sudden there's just an event happening. It could be a protest. It could be I don't know. It could be something more like a pride march or a memorial. Like Chinatown has like memorials almost every other day, and that's their thing, and that's fine. It's just one of those weird places. There's always something going on, or like you're in the Mission District and there's like Carnival happening, or there's one of those like I don't know. There's too many things going on in San Francisco. I can't keep track of everything. It's a lot. There's always something going on. One of these weird cities. You never know. So it's never boring. It's kind of fun. But
yeah, the first time that I went to San Francisco, I went with my wife, and we went up for an Evernote conference. Do you remember the Evernote phone app? It had an elephant logo, and it was a note-taking app.
I never used it.
So it was pretty popular when the iPhone 3 and 4 and 5 and that era had come out. So the Evernote had a conference in San Francisco, and we were so nerdy with this thing. We're like, let's go to a conference about note-taking, you know. It was such our excuse to go see San Francisco. It's like, oh yeah, we'll do the Golden Gate Bridge. Oh yeah, you know, we'll finally get some FaceTime with some friends, and oh yeah, you know, we'll walk Hate Street, and like let's go to. And at that time, I wasn't even into Modular synth, so I didn't know what robot speak was. But it was beautiful, and it was like in August or September, and I didn't realize how cold it was. And you know, get on a double-decker bus, and you pay the price.
Yeah. Oh man, some of those tours, those double deckers. My girl and I went on one once a couple years ago, and we sat on top, and it was a sunny day, but we were surprised about how awkward it was because it went, through like downtown Union Square, and there's places where the trees have not been trimmed for a double-decker bus, and you've got to duck so that you don't get hit by the brushes. That was kind of weird. So we didn't. Be warned for anyone who is not taking these double-decker bus tours to San Francisco. You're going to have to duck at some point.
Yes.
But I'd like to know a little bit more about the recent album, "The Noise We Send." This is an EP. I was curious about. So I was listening to it the other day. Lovely textures. I really enjoyed it, and I was curious to know some of the production notes that you put on how you put this together.
Oh, yes. Don't laugh because last year, I'm actually looking it up because last year I put out like 6 different albums, and like I'm trying to remember the song that I put on it. It's so silly. Okay, The Noise We Send. I guess it's a 3-track. Yes. Okay, good. Thank you for that diversion because I'm like, I'm going to put a track. I've got all these, it's like the whole thing of I have so many files in my hard drives and I just need to get them out to the world. And so finally last year, I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm going to get all these tracks. Like they're even 3 or 4 years old, 5, even 6 years old that I just never really put out, or maybe I put it out on YouTube, but I didn't put it out as an official release. And I'm going to say, I'm finally going to be that guy that's scraped through my hard drives and actually put stuff out. So last year, I think I did 5 or 6 albums. So this was one of them. But what I liked about this one is that the last 2, the first, there's a 3-track EP. The first 2 were the ones that I had, the last 2 that I had written while I was in Los Angeles before I moved to DC. And the one I do, the first track, it's called "It's Gonna Be Okay." It was a track where I was in my studio. Also, it was during pandemic, and I had developed a Eurotrash haircut that I wanted to have by choice. I'm like, it's the pandemic. Do something weird with my hair. This is the hairstylist that gave me my NAMM tickets. So she's like, all right, I'm going to Eurotrash. And I'm like, it's fine because I can just cut it off if I don't like it. So the video of this patch is me, and I was learning like multicam, trying to do performances, but I had the Black Magic Digidesign, I think it is, where you have the 4. You can have up to 4 different cameras, and you can hit them and change the camera angles. So I was trying to test that out while I was playing, and I'm just like, I don't know if this is going to work. But the song turned out amazing, and I had just gotten the Imitor Versio from Noise Engineering. It's like a 12-tap delay. So when you get your hands on a new module, you just want to record it like right away and get that first taste of a module and have it documented. So that's what that patch was, and so I had the Eurotrash haircut, I had the multicam going on, and it was one of the last videos I did in LA, and it was with this new module. And there was something about the energy of all of that just like made it really powerful. And I was like, I got to put this out as a proper release. So I put it out right around NobCon of last year. And the second one was kind of a more down-tempo one off the same vein. And then the last one was like, it was a patch that I discovered it was a performance that I'd forgotten I had, but it was the only live performance I did on Facebook Live because I was testing with a lot of streams at the time. So that was like a Facebook live stream that I had completely forgotten about. And as I was going through the hard drives, I'm like, what is this? Oh my gosh. And so I wanted to kind of do a larger, more ambient, long form piece to kind of like, just to kind of to counteract with the other 2 pieces that were on this album.
Yeah, it really came together nicely.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It was fun because I bike to work, so it was one of these wonderful soundtracks of me just riding my bike at like 5 a.m. in the morning through San Francisco where there's nobody around and it's still dark out. It's perfect.
Oh, cool. And I think at the time I titled it "The Noise We Send" because There's probably a lot of things happening politically with the broadcast industry. I don't know if it was a time when Kimmel was let go or fired or whatever. And it's just like there's this change that's happening in broadcast. And I had 20 years in broadcast. And so knowing that I was kind of watching the change of broadcast as it stood, like it was changing so quickly to what I had remembered it. And so I thought the noise we send, it was just, to me, it just felt like it was nonsense or clutter. And so that's why I put like TV towers and like made that album kind of just saying, we're just putting out all this weird noise right now because we don't really have the things that we were so used to seeing and doing are just like changing in ways that we're just like not familiar with. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense on why you chose to design the cover like that. That makes a lot of sense. I did get to see you live perform last year at the club, at the after party for Booklet and Friends at AI, which your album and title was the Booklomyces Modulars. Is that what it says?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And that was a fun show because that was my first time ever seeing you perform live. And that was something to see, man. And I was talking to, I think I was talking to Shonda because she was there, and Traversy, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And even at the end of your set, like exactly every transition is happening, and there's this fantastic boom that happens, and you just went bam, bam with the music. It was perfect. Nice.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you're probably the only, because of the way the camera was shot, because my wife had filmed it. I think you're like the only person that's actually in the shot with your camera.
Yeah, I am. I'm in the far corner. I saw it.
Except the people that are like whizzing by because they got to get a drink or something. But yeah, I love that set. And really, I think that's probably, I'm so glad you saw that, because I would say even to this day, that was probably my best performance to date. And it's not just because of the performance itself. It's, usually there's always huge backstories to things, because I think I've done almost 100 performances now since I started Modular in 2014. And I've been keeping track of all of them because I just like to document what's happening. And so that one, I'm going to say that was my best performance, just because I'm working for noise engineering, and it was an all noise engineering case. I was playing in front of my bosses. Stephen and Chris were there. I had friends in the film industry and old friends that I've known forever in LA, and some other like composers I saw in the crowd, and saw some like hip hop artists in the crowd. I'm like, man, this is a crowd. So I felt like, and I hadn't played in LA since I had left. And so I was like, this is just to tell people I'm doing okay, like I'm still in it and I'm still wanting to do something fantastic. So to see all my friends and all these people come together and just celebrate that moment just gave me so much energy. I even had a friend from DC who's like, I had hyped it up so much. He's like, dude, I'm flying out. So he flew out to LA and sat there in the front and just like totally supported me. I'm just like, this is crazy. So the energy was high. The performance was great. You have happy accidents, and then when you go back and listen to it, you're like, yeah, that's the intention. I like that. And but then you learn from the mistakes, and then it ends up becoming your style almost in some way. So I was really fortunate that I didn't have any issues, and the crowd was good, and it was well documented, and plus being there for the Booklet and Friends, and I loved it. So I'm so glad you were able to witness some of that, because to this day, I still go back and listen to it. And the whole reason why I labeled it such a weird title is because I'd also done artwork for the Booklet and Friends show that year, because I was working with Bukla and Peter. And so they were still so new. It was their second year, but they were so new. So he had sent me a bunch of like mushrooms of all these different color palettes. He's like, dude, can you create some artwork for Booklet and Friends 2, but have it revolve around all these different mushrooms? And like, okay. So I totally like did the art design for Buchla and Friends 2 and 1, but the second one was more fun because I had this mushroom color palette. So I decided to title all sections of this live performance with like weird mushroom naming conventions, but putting Buchla in there just to kind of like seal it. So when you said is it this title, I'm like, yeah, because I still don't know how to pronounce it. It's the worst SEO ever for an album, but you get the idea.
That's fun. Was it Peter Nybor that sent you that?
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's Peter. Yeah. That's so cool, man. That's some great insight. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is just really fun to actually have a chance to really chat with you, because I know we've known each other for a couple of years now, but we never really have a chance to really chat. Because I think I did, again, like during the pandemic, maybe it was 2021, I did maybe one of those, it was with David Soto, Sign Mountain, and you had guys were out in Colorado. I don't know if you were out there at the time, but I did a performance. I think it was a pre-recorded performance. It was like you have to use like it was like a challenge if you have to use 3 modules in your Eurorack to create a minute track or something like that. So I did one for fun, and it was cool. And so you guys brought me on, and we chatted for a minute, and we got to listen to all kinds of music for an hour or a couple hours, I think. And that was just a fun participation for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at that time, it was really exciting to see that the modular community was still finding ways to connect. And I mean, I talk about Jono like crazy, but he was so instrumental in getting people to live stream and come together with Modular World. And so I feel like there was, you just got to know all these people while we're sitting at home. You're just hearing about all these different countries with so many modular artists and influence, and just hearing their stories. But yeah, so I think that having that, and then the New York Modular Society was doing live streams too, as well as Denver. So I actually did a live stream on Twitch with New York Modular Society. That was really cool. And they had like the chat room and all that. It was fun. But then David and I were like, let's just do these co-host and host these shows and have people submit stuff, and we'll just like banter in between them and just bring people together. And I think it was the 3 module challenge, because it's like I think it was 3 minutes, but we had so many entries. I think the show was like 4 or 5 hours. And just when we would like introduce an artist and we would watch it, it's like, okay, the song's done. And then we would talk about it. And so it's like, how do we do this so it's not like us talking, for 10 minutes and then a 3-minute patch and then 10 minutes. Like, we need a little bit of a break, but it was kind of cool to see so many people and so many different ideas, and seeing like, whoa, I had those same 3 modules and I would have never thought of doing something like a noise patch with it, and just really seeing what people do with different gear. Like in a 3 module fashion is great, because sometimes when you see a whole case, you're just like, I can't understand the synthesis that's happening. But if it's just 3 modules, you can really hone in on a certain technique that artist is doing, and then you could try to like not mimic it, but just like see if that inspires you with the module you have to to progress into a different place, or just to patch differently.
Absolutely. I love seeing the way that everyone has their own style on using different modules.
Yeah, I would like to find, I have never done this, I've thought about it, but just find somebody with the same 10 modules as you, and then like do like different patches, do an ambient set, do a techno set, do a just experimental set, and just see what you come up with, and then like talk it over. That might be a really cool like in-person session. I should think about doing a show like that, pairings or something, where people play the same, not the exact same set, but the exact same modules, and just see what that sounds like. Because it would be something that would really open up some minds, and as far as like thinking differently about the gear that they have.
I think it's a fantastic idea if for 2 artists to be using the same modules and creating patches and seeing where they go. It'd be a wonderful session, if in person or online. That's just a fun idea of bringing these different ideas with the same gear together, and how different it makes your sound. Because even if you go to, because if we look at all the gear we all use, even if we're using something like Electron, which is much more versatile with the variety of synthesizer engines in there, you're going to come up with something. Everyone has their own style of how they play that instrument.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't really get into much of, was the Electron gear, just because I knew it's a whole different ecosystem, and I didn't know if I was going to have enough time to really fully learn it the way I wanted to learn it. Mm-hmm. But I do have such an appreciation for people that can combine the two and have them integrate with each other. And yeah, it's pretty impressive, even just as a company, to see all the products that they have been releasing over the years. But yeah, I almost got a Digitact, and I had bought it and it sat here in the box, and then I'm like, I can't. It's because I'm like, I'm still trying to learn. You know, it's like when you know 10% of a module, and you're like, I know if I just learn these modules I have more fully, then I think I would find. It's almost like finding new modules within the modules you have. And I know there's other things that are hidden in there that I just need to sit down and explore. And it's paid for, so I might as well take advantage of that. So that's kind of why I stuck with just Eurorack. And plus, because I was like, I kind of grew my performance skills through the idea of MOTS, of just having everything in the box. That even to this day, it's very rare for me to go and perform with any kind of external gear. I'm always in the box. I'm always just carrying the case, so it's uncomfortable for me to have a separate piece of gear for whatever reason. But I still have that Moog Sub-Fatty that I talked about. And at some point, I'm going to bring that thing out with a case and do something really interesting with it. Because why not? Like, it's there, and it just opens up a different world. And I really need to kind of step out of that comfort zone of just being always in a system and not really expanding beyond that, and just learning MIDI a little bit better. And, just taking that whole technique and that whole feature set of MIDI and actually learning that, rather than focusing on a new, just like a
new system,
a new system or a new format or something that, that I might end up spending a lot more money than I should. Not that that's always the case, but it's just, I want to just go deeper with the stuff that I already have.
Right. Like, similarly, I've got the Mimetic Digitulus. I've been really enjoying it. Every time I play with it, I'm amazed about what I can do with it, but at the same time, I get stumped on things. I go, man, I really got to go back and read the manual, because there's so much that I'm missing on every time I'm trying to just play live and play around. It's like I get stuck on just kind of programming certain things, but then I think, oh man, I really need to go back and just kind of reread these things. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like you cast a spell and then you have to spend a turn just beating the spell again just to learn it.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a really good That's a good point. Yeah, and then I would say the modules that I have to go back and constantly look at manuals to figure it out are ones that I usually end up trading off or replacing. But us as a company, we don't put a lot of screens on our modules. The first screen we put out was with the Zermixa mixer, which made sense in that it made sense because we were adding MIDI integration, so you could really set those settings up, and we save the menu items for a lot of things that are behind the things that you don't need when you're performing pre and post fade, or some of the using the expander to do different CV patterns or trigger patterns, and then just saving all the hardware for the mutes and the volume controls and some of the panning like that. But so that felt like it was necessary to do a little bit of menu diving. And then Mimetic Digitulus, we put a menu on. And then it's like I don't think we got into feature creep because we didn't want to get too deep into the menus, but we understood that there's some extra functionality, like just like, for example, having the ability to trigger the shred of a sequence, just to having that ability to do it every 2 steps or every 4 steps or random, like that has added so much to how I treat the old mimetic versus the new one. Because the old mimetic, I would just try to do it in, like, I would do a sequence and I would just use the random or try to do the XY coordinates to do things. But just to go in and flip it and just say, okay, every now and then just shred the actual value instead of having a set value, just makes that sequence last for a long time. So I can see why we would want to use the menus to do a function like that, as opposed to having 50 buttons and LEDs and trying to navigate that way. So and then the response from we were interested to see what the response would be on the screen, and we had shown it off at one of the NobCons, and the feedback was really great. People liked the colors of it, and they liked the menu diving was only like 2 clicks in, 2 clicks out. So, but I can see. I hope that people will find enough ways through the menus that they don't have to go back and revert to a manual. And there's like a specific pattern that I always use for my mimetic digitools now that I'm always going to. So definitely playing with it all the time has been helpful, especially since it can do like the triggers and the gates and all those other fun things that the first version wasn't able to do. So having those other functions just kind of saves some space for small cases, because I do like playing in small cases too.
Yeah, it makes a big difference for me, and having the ability to save patches within banks makes a big difference for me on the digitools.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
It's good.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for having some time to chat with me for North² for Peaked FM. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you tonight.
Same here. I appreciate it, and I'm excited that hopefully we'll see you at an upcoming show. I'll definitely be back in LA for the Bookland Friends, and there's some other shows that are coming out over the summer. I know that there's a Emix West that's happening in Denver that David Soto's helping coordinate, and then there's a NobCons, and so hopefully there's be some travel between now and the next Bookland Friends that maybe we'll see each other or at least see people and just get some FaceTime. But yeah, so I'm always excited to talk to people and get their feedback and just saying hello.
Well, hopefully I can make it out to one of those shows and catch you playing again. That'd be really fun.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.